Vanderbilt and Diego Pavia are in prime position to make a historic run at the college football playoff.
You are Locked On Vandy, your daily podcast on the Vanderbilt Commodores, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everybody? Happy Wednesday. Welcome into the Locked On Vandy podcast on the Locked On Podcast Network, the #1 sports podcasting network. I'm your host, Corey Burton. Thanks for making us your first listen each and every day. Wherever you can find us, wherever you listen to your podcast and on YouTube, we cover your team. We cover Vandy every single day. So, got an action-packed show here. We're going to talk about some things the defense can do to fix themselves. This all kind of gears back and funnels back into what's the most important stretch run in Vanderbilt football history. They have a chance to make the college football playoff. We're going to talk about the pieces that it takes. You know, we're going to talk about the defense. How do they get back on track? Vanderbilt can win in many different ways. Offensively, they have expanded. They have evolved a little bit within their schemes. We're going to talk about that and how that's going to be important going down the stretch. But let's just talk about the journey itself, because Vanderbilt is still alive. Now, their percentages is somewhere in the 30s right now, I would say, 40s. They need a lot of help. But according to the latest playoff rankings, I think Vanderbilt's in a good position. They went out. They get some help maybe from Georgia this weekend to knock out Texas, from Alabama to maybe knock out Oklahoma in front of them. I think there's a chance there. There's a legitimate chance. Now, you look at the playoff picture here. Ohio State, Indiana, got to think that they're locks. Texas A&M, they're undefeated unless they just have an epic run of losing. I don't think that will happen. I think they're pretty much in. Bama, if they win, they control their own destiny. If they get to Atlanta, they're in. Georgia, I think, can control their own destiny. They won't go to Atlanta, but they will get some tiebreakers there. I think it's going to come down to Texas Tech, BYU. I think they're going to match up sometime in the Big 12 championship. I don't think both of those teams are going to get in. I think the Big 12 and the ACC are one-bid leagues. Right now, South Florida looks like they're the highest-ranked Group of 5 team, maybe. But then again, you have a dark horse in Tulane as well, so that could get interesting in the Group of 5 there. So it's going to come down to it's going to be a numbers game, right? Because you got to hope Utah kind of falls out. BYU continues to kind of stay there. I think if the Big 12 gets 2 teams in, that's going to make it tough for Vanderbilt to jump up beyond that 12th spot. I think they have to have Notre Dame lose, which I think is they have fairly easy schedule there. The 2 teams that can really kind of get out of their way this weekend, Texas with a loss to Georgia, which I think is going to happen. Georgia is they're starting to figure some things out, and like Steve Willis says, they're a rolling ball of butcher knives right now. So it's going to be a tough one for Texas if they can somehow pull it off. They still have to beat Texas A&M. Arkansas is not really much of a speed bump there, but they'll have to beat Texas A&M at home for even a chance to go to the SEC championship if things play out in that manner. So it's going to be an interesting stretch. Again, there's a chance. All right. There's a chance. They're still alive. You go 10-2, you get some help. And I think you could find yourself in a position where the dominoes fall just the way you want them to. The ACC is going to be an interesting conference because you have Virginia, Georgia Tech, Louisville right there. Miami, which I think they're kind of hustling backwards. I really think it's going to come down to Louisville and Georgia Tech in this conference. Louisville's playing extremely well. Virginia just got beat by Wake Forest. I think they're starting to run out of steam a little bit. You've got 3 teams in the Big 12 fighting for it again. Like I said, I think the Big 10 is going to get 3 with Oregon, Indiana, and Ohio State. I think your 3 shoe-ins for the SEC, or your 4 shoe-ins for the SEC, A&M, Bama, Georgia, and Ole Miss, with a chance for a 5th. And I think if the schedule plays out the way it should, I think you could get a 5th in. And if it's going to be Texas, Oklahoma or Vandy if you can get a fifth SEC team in. And I think Texas, I think there's a loss or two left on their schedule. So I think that's going to knock them right out. And then Oklahoma, if they can beat Alabama, that could get interesting as well. And then, that's going to make things interesting. So you want, I think as a Vandy fan, you want A&M, you want Bama, you want Georgia and Ole Miss to take care of business. They're probably going to be in regardless at this point. And if that happens, that means Texas is out of your way and Oklahoma is out of your way, both suffering a third loss. So, and then you need BYU to kind of tumble a little bit, which they're pretty good. I don't know if that's going to happen. Maybe an upset somewhere on Notre Dame's schedule wouldn't hurt. I think it's unlikely, but it wouldn't hurt. Maybe somewhere on Oregon's schedule, maybe there's an upset. Looking at their schedule, I'm going to pull that up here in just a second. But they're a good football team, and I don't think they have a whole lot left on their schedule. And they got routed I didn't get routed, but they got beat at home by Indiana. It looked a lot worse than the score actually indicates. But they've got Minnesota, USC, and Washington. So it's going to get interesting for Oregon. That USC game, it's going to be tricky. It's at home, but it's going to get tricky. I think the Washington game got a little bit easier. But Minnesota's not easy, although I don't think they're going to struggle a ton with them. But it's not a cakewalk for Oregon too. So there's some chances with a lot of football left that Vandy could be sitting pretty. Now, if Vanderbilt slips up, it's all she wrote. They can't slip up. And against Kentucky, who they're playing a lot better, and Cutter Boley's a good quarterback, but I've never been able to say this, but I just don't think they have the juice to keep up with Vanderbilt, especially with the implications that are on the line at home. And then Tennessee, you got to win a tough road game. You just got to do it. That's the way the football gods intended, to go into Neyland with a playoff spot on the line and drop that dub. You got to do it. You got to win it. You got to win another tough road game. You've won two. Well, I say it's tough. They're tough environments. The teams have underachieved massively since Virginia Tech and South Carolina, but those aren't easy places to win, especially when you were on the wrong end of a 16-game losing streak against South Carolina. Like, to get that win signifies a lot for this Vanderbilt program. Just in general, it's not really much of an impressive win given how bad South Carolina has been all season long. Same with Virginia Tech, but still at that point in the season, for Vanderbilt, they needed that. And so I think with Tennessee, it's going to be interesting because they're going to be coming off a game against Florida, which Florida I think is essentially quit. And that's going to be interesting. How they play that game, how they come out of that game, with the chance, they'll be 8-3. They'll have a chance to go 9-3 there. With them not playing for a playoff spot, do they put their full focus on it? Maybe yes, because it's Vanderbilt, but then again, they've had success against Vanderbilt, and Vanderbilt's little brother to them, and this. It's it feels like more of a rivalry on this end than it does on that end. And I can't wait to talk to Eric Kane again about it. We had a crossover earlier this summer. If you want a refresher, go check that out. But with the bye week, I think just sitting back and enjoying some of these games is going to be awesome. Like, all eyes on the Texas-Georgia game, all eyes on the Bama-Oklahoma game. Like, those are the two games right now that I think would do a huge amount of favors for Vanderbilt. So if you're listening to this, go Dogs, roll Tide. Like, those are the games you need those teams to win. You need Bama I don't think Bama can lose enough to get out of your way. I don't think Georgia can lose enough. Well, but I think if Georgia loses, it means that it's going to elevate Texas. So, let's say Georgia beats Texas but loses to Georgia Tech. What does that do? I don't know. That's tough to say. That's tough to say how the playoff picture. I think if Georgia beats, I think the only way for Georgia to be out of the way is to lose to both Texas and Georgia Tech, which I don't think is likely. I think if they're gonna lose one, they're gonna lose either to Texas or Georgia Tech. I don't believe it's going to be both, but it's a crazy football season, so I could be wrong there. There's a lot of football to play, and I just don't think Texas can walk into Athens and beat Georgia. Now, I claimed Vanderbilt would go into Texas and beat Texas, which they got shellacked, and then they came back, and they almost pulled the comeback. And I don't know. Georgia's so good, so efficient offensively. Defensively, they're starting to figure some things out. They're just going to overwhelm Texas, and that environment's going to overwhelm them, I think, a little bit too. So, all eyes are going to be there. But to say Vanderbilt doesn't have a shot is not true. They got to win out. They can't afford any bumps, and they got to have some help. But there is a path to the college football playoff. It's like that Always Sunny in Philadelphia meme with Charlie, where he's like standing in front of the cork board and it's got like 30,000 pieces of yarn going in every direction and circles, and he's got a cigarette in his hand. He's like his hair's all frazzled and he's all like stressed out and his eyes are bugging out. Like, it's that kind of meme for Vandy's playoff picture, but there is a path. There is a path. So what can Vanderbilt do to stay on that path and possibly sneak into the field? We're going to talk about the offensive side. We're going to talk about how them learning how to win in different ways is going to help them down the stretch run. We'll talk about it next. Yes. Supply House. I love this one. When the opening whistle blows on a new repair, get your crew moving forward with Supply House. Order today and see parts on your doorstep tomorrow. Over 280,000 plumbing, HVAC, and electrical items from the most trusted brands in the business. Their real-time inventory and honest lead times can keep you from punting projects, while their industry-leading customer service always has your blind side covered. You need parts fast for a project? Supply House has next-day delivery. Talk about a game changer. The part finder tools and 3D schematics can save you hours on jobs where every detail matters. Their Trademaster perks like priority shipping and dedicated support make the whole process smoother. So join the free Trademaster program today and score serious perks like priority shipping, lower prices, and a dedicated support line. So visit supplyhouse.com to sign up for free and use promo code SHCollege5 for 5% off your first order. That's supplyhouse.com. Real people, real service. Thanks for making Locked On Vandy your first listen. Thanks for making and everything you do to make the Locked On Podcast Network the number one sports podcasting network out there. Thank you, thank you, thank you. We are at the top of the mountain. Why? Because of you. This shirt should say Sports Podcast Champions now and forever. And it should have the Locked On logo right here. You design that shirt. That'd be dope. But anyway, it's because of you guys. And it's because you guys are so loyal, the everydayers, tremendous part. And this thing just keeps growing and growing and growing. And I can't thank you guys enough. So I appreciate you always, always, always. Locked On SEC, the place to go if you need another show, if you need a second listen. Chris Gordy, unbelievable. The entire SEC family of shows, unbelievable. And if it's a bye week, so if you want to explore a little bit after you listen to me, go to Locked On Bulldogs, listen to them talk about their matchup with Texas. Go support BK, Locked On Longhorns, see, just kind of check out that matchup. That's an important matchup for Vanderbilt. So the Bama one, Locked On Bama with Luke Robinson and Jimmy Stein, with Jay Smith and John Williams on the Locked On Sooner side. Like, those are two interesting matchups. Those are two of the most important matchups of the weekend for Vanderbilt. And Vanderbilt can just sit back and watch all of that action unfold. So Vanderbilt's road to the playoffs. Before the Texas game, the road was smoother. It was more level. It was more like you could set your cruise control almost, like you were about at that point. If you could have gotten past Texas, I think setting your cruise control was all but ready to happen. You lose to Texas, and that road just it's long, it's windy, it's uphill, but you can get there. It's not impassable. It's not impossible. And especially if you're driving a Mazda vehicle, right? With all those reads we did, but there is a path. Now, for Vanderbilt, one of the things that I think over the last 3 weeks, over the last 3 games, I think one of the biggest things that has happened over this 3-game stretch is I think Vanderbilt having to win in multiple ways, and even the loss against Texas, like what they endured and what they did in that game, I think is going to come in handy with these last 2, Kentucky and Tennessee, because against Missouri, you had to win a defensive slugfest. It was brutal, physical, just low scoring. You had to, you won by a half of a yard because they hit the Hail Mary. Like it was one of those type of games where the defense was just clamped down on you and you just couldn't do anything, right? You had to scrap for every yard, every point. Points were a premium. Like it was one of those type of games. And Vanderbilt, they lived those type of games before. So that was like, I felt like that was more natural. Then you roll into Texas. And the beautiful thing about the Texas game is this. Even though you lost, I think it showed you a bunch of different things. And I think life in college football, or college football life, backhanded you back into reality. And what it forced you to realize is this. They could have, after the first half, they could have rolled over, just said, hey, this is in our day, and Texas could have rolled to a 45-3 victory. Coronation of sorts. They could have gotten Eli Manning out of that game. They could have sat the starters. They could have put in some backups. Like that was the direction that game was headed. And it was starting to get there fast. But Vanderbilt slammed on the brakes. They fought. They put their cleats in the ground and they fought back. It was a long, arduous fight. But they fought themselves back into that game, and they were a knocked the ball out of bounds trying to recover it, and actually had the ball recovered, but just knocked it around they could not hang on to it. It was like a hot potato. They just knocked it out of bounds. They were that play away from tying it, going in overtime, and they had all the momentum. They would have won in overtime. But that's also a kind of game, like that's adversity. Just Mike Tyson punching you right in the jaw. And they took it and they fought back. And that type of resiliency, I think, is going to come into handy because you're going to need every bit of that down the stretch, because Kentucky's going to give you their best, and obviously Tennessee's going to give you their best, not only because it's the in-state thing and they don't want to lose to Vanderbilt, but it's a road game for Vandy. It is just everything about this Tennessee game. You're going to need every ounce of that adversity training that you got against Texas. You got the same amount of training, and the training came in handy against Auburn because Auburn got off to the same kind of start. Like, it looked at one point like Auburn was going to run away with the game, which was odd because Auburn was putrid on offense all year long. And now they just explode. But you fight back into that game. And then you go toe to toe. You trade punch for punch. And that Auburn game, what you learned in that Auburn game about yourself is you traded punches with an explosive offense. And yes, Auburn was an explosive offense on Saturday. I don't consider that Auburn team the same Auburn team that's been there all season, because they fired Hugh Freeze. They found a new identity. They found some confidence. They found a competent play caller, and they found a quarterback that can execute. They found all of that. That was what Auburn was supposed to look like. Cam Coleman is a beast. Eric Singleton is a beast. Jeremiah Cobb I think he's a great running back. Like, I think they had a lot going on that offense. And it's criminal that Cam Coleman just hasn't had that good of a season. Like, it's disappointing almost, right? So what you glean from that game, you love to win it, of course. But what you glean from that game is the resiliency that it takes to go possession for possession. So it was like one of those featherweight fights where there's not much defense, and it's just two like 130-pound boxers just wailing on each other, and then one of them just falls down. That's what happened. Auburn just happened to fall down because they just so emotionally exhausted because it's been such a roller coaster. They just couldn't hang. They just ran out of gas. And Vanderbilt, I think, was being a little bit more stable and mature. They were able to outlast. And I think that's going to come into handy against Tennessee. Now, how does that translate? I don't know. Tennessee's pretty explosive. Chris Brazzell, pretty explosive. They got a good bit of team speed, so it's going to be a challenge. But I think those skills should translate against the Tennessee Volunteers at Neyland Stadium, and those skills should allow you to be able to adapt. Now, they showed adaptability that I don't think anyone knew that they had. Starting in the fourth quarter of the Texas game, all the way through the end of the Auburn game, I think Vanderbilt showed some adaptability that, like I said, no one thought they had. And they reversed course. They became started using tempo. They started throwing the ball around. They started doing a lot of different things that I didn't even think they could really do on a consistent basis, because their number one, Junior Sherrill, and then of course Eli Stowers is their number one overall weapon in the pass game. You just don't know. And the production up until that point hadn't been there. I think situationally it was there, but numbers wise, you wouldn't say Vanderbilt has a scary passing attack. Now you do. Now at some point something clicked. I don't know what it was. I don't know what clicked, but it clicked. And that's going to be, I think, something that this team can look at and say, okay, well, we can win a slugfest. That's our identity. That's our real identity. We can win and we can fight and we can claw ourselves back into a game. If you knock us down, we can get back up off the canvas and continue to fight. And then we can also pour it on you as well. We can also score points. We can lay it up there with 500, almost 600 yards of total offense and 45 points. We can against an elite defense. So they can do a lot of different things. So that's the scary part about this Vanderbilt team. That's what makes them a contender. The fact that they can win multiple ways, it makes it tough for the other teams. So the thing they have to fix the most, though, I think when you look at the defensive side of the ball, something along the line is just out of whack, broken. Just, I don't know, malfunctioning a little bit. We'll talk about what that is, how they can fix it next. I tell you what, though, what's fun is FanDuel, because the NBA is back and better than ever. You've got midweek action, fun belt games that you can bet on all throughout the week. I mean, I think it was 49 days straight of football or something starting, a couple of weeks ago. So they're already into it. So there's college football on every week or every day. Now it's or I think there's football on every day. I think college goes Tuesday to Saturday, and then NFL has their schedule. But anyway, there's plenty of stuff to bet on. You can bet on these coaching searching odds, right? I think at the last time I looked at it, Clark Lee was plus 1,000 for the Florida job and the LSU job. Listen to my last episode. I don't think he's going to go anywhere. But as far as basketball goes, if you miss the start of the game or want to ride a hot hand, FanDuel has live bets from everything from who will score the fourth quarter and who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Sorry, I got a little excited there. Plus, when you can combine your live bets into a same game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. I love the same game parlays. I love playing the live bets. Those are a lot of fun. It just keeps every game exciting. It makes me want to watch it. It makes me want to watch a Bucks Trailblazers game, because if I got a little bit of cheddar on it, then I'll watch it. Especially the fourth quarter, I'll just keep an eye on it. So it just makes it exciting. So right now, FanDuel's giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up, play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right, wrapping up here on the Locked On Vandy podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. In case you didn't know, the number one podcasting network out there, sports podcasting network out there. So make sure you pat yourselves on the back, because guess what? It's because of you guys. At Locked On Vandy to follow the show And make sure you like, subscribe, all that good stuff wherever you find your podcast. Or if you're right here on YouTube, just go ahead and hit that subscribe button and hit that notification so you know when an episode drops. So, but thanks to you guys, this thing is rolling on like a freight train. So, and I'm rocking like a hurricane. Anyway, talking about Vanderbilt's playoff run, everything we talk about from here on out just funnels into that one question: does Vandy have a shot? And the answer is yes. They have a shot, an absolute shot. They have a legitimate shot, not like a Dumb and Dumber 1 in a million talk, but they actually have a legitimate shot. They need some help, and they need to be perfect down the stretch, but they certainly have it. Now, one of the concerning things coming out of these last 2 weeks is the defense, and concerning because uncharacteristically, they're giving up a lot of yards, a lot of points. Tackling has been pretty poor and subpar. It just seems like they've kind of lost their way a little bit. And it's not personnel. It's not this guy sucks, that guy sucks. Even though I said a few weeks ago, CJ Hurd had just a horrific game against Texas. Everyone's due for one of those, but he's since got it back together, and I think he was a key piece in that, especially that final play against Auburn where he really affected the throw, because I think Ashton Daniels didn't think he was going to be right there in the throwing lane, and it forced him to throw it high, and he overthrew Cam Coleman, which is kind of tough to do. But this defense is just, honestly, the way I look at it is this defense has been playing aggressive all year long, and they've been playing aggressive to win. And I just, if you're going to give up 38 points, if you're going to give up 31 points to Texas, if you're going to give up a bunch of yards, you do so swinging. And where they make their bank is getting pressure. Now, I'm not saying throw 6-7 bodies at the quarterback. I'm saying mix it up a little bit. Don't just drop back people. Don't let them have all day in the pocket, but also put a little pressure on them. And I think they've just kind of, and maybe it's fatigue, maybe there's some other factors at play here, but it's just there's something that's lost. And I haven't quite put a finger on it because it's different things at different times too. It's you lose contain on a running quarterback, which against Cutter Boley, you're going to have to contend with that a little bit. It's leaving too much space in the zones. It's not being able, it's having breakdowns in your tackling fundamentals on the perimeter, or even just getting guys to the ball, like how you attack the ball on the perimeter, even, I think can be affected as well. I think there's been some miscommunications in coverage. I think there's been some missed opportunities on the quarterback. There's been some dropped turnover opportunities. I think there's a few picks. There was one pick that could have ended the game with Dante Carter, hit him in the chest. I think the ball just got on him and jumped on him and took him by surprise. Would have sealed the game there. I mean, certainly not anything worthy of like blame, but it just those type of things. Like I think if Vanderbilt can start getting some of those plays back in their favor, I think they're going to have a better shot at getting back to what they're used to and being tough, being stingy. And their calling card has been discipline, being in the right place at the right time, and tackling extremely well. That's been their MO all year long up until the Texas game. There were shades of it against Missouri, but it was bend but don't break. That's kind of what Vanderbilt is. But they made big plays. They're bend but don't break, but they also make the opportunistic plays as well. That's what they do well. That's what they haven't done well in their two losses and against Auburn, which they ended up winning, but they didn't do extremely well. Right? Against Alabama, they just did not make the opportunistic plays. I think they gave too much cushion against Alabama. I think early on in the Texas game, I think they were frightened a little bit about the speed, and I think they gave them a little too much cushion. And they just did when they started clamping down a little bit. I think they started having a little bit more success. I just want this defense to go back to playing with confidence. That's the biggest key. Just go back to playing with confidence, make the plays when they come, and I guarantee you'll see an uptick in momentum. I guarantee you'll see this team play a lot better defensively. And those are simple fixes. And yes, those seem very, very obvious, but they're not doing the obvious things. And that's what's made them struggle the last 2 games defensively, is they're not doing the obvious things well enough, consistently enough. The simple things, the things are like, oh, yeah, of course, if the team that tackles better. Of course, the team that keeps the other team out of the end zone better. Oh, yeah, don't give up explosive plays. Yeah, no, duh, right? But there's truth to that. It's the obvious things they're not doing well. It's the simple things they're not doing well. It's essentially they're not making layups when there's layups to be made. And that's the problem. And if they can fix that, I think there'll be a lot more confident unit. Tennessee's still going to get some big plays. That's just what they do. But they can be a lot more confident unit, and I think they can make it tougher on Kentucky and Tennessee down the stretch. Those are winnable games. They just got to go out and win them, right? Seems simple, right? It's not quite that simple, but it's also in the cards and very much in the cards. So we'll keep talking more about this. Going to have Mike Huseman on later this week, so that's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to talk about Heisman odds. We're going to talk about playoff odds a little bit further, what Vanderbilt needs to do in these 2 games, how they match up against Kentucky, how they match up against Tennessee, both playing cupcakes this week. So you're not going to get a whole lot of looks at them. But it's Kentucky's a very confident team right now, so that's going to be troublesome. So hopefully I can connect with Lance Daw. Basketball started, so it might be a little challenging getting him on board with a crossover. But hey, let's get this thing going. But until next time, anchor down. Hope you enjoy, and check me out later. Right, the #1 sports podcasting network out there. Know it, believe it. It's Locked On Vandy. It's the Locked On Podcast Network. Until next time, anchor down. Peace.